Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here with Mathias from Finntroll. New album coming out, by the way. You're going to have to help me with the pronunciation of the new album, because I'm sure I butchered it every single time that I said it. Comes out September 18th on Century Media Records. How are you doing?
I'm really good. Lots and stuff going on with the new album right now. So yeah, it's definitely interesting times.
So let's start off with that. How do you pronounce the name of the record?
It's actually pronounced Vredesvävd.
All right, I guess I wasn't too far off.
No, it's actually not that far. You know, Swedish and English, they have sort of a little bit, quite a lot of similarities anyway. So yeah, so it's not that far away.
Well, what does it mean?
It's sort of if you translate directly, it would be wrath-woven, woven in anger or something like that.
Okay. So it's been 7 years since the last album been released. Why such a long break in between records?
Yeah, this is the question that I probably have to answer the most on this because because you know there's lots of things happened, you know, in between. For example, you know, we usually have quite a long album cycle. It's been like 3, maybe even 4 years between albums sometimes. But this time, when we toured with the Vredesvävd album quite a lot for the first years after we released it in 2013, and you could really feel that there was probably some kind of break was coming, because for over 5 years we toured like crazy. We were there. It was I remember me and Virta at some point we counted how many gigs we played, and I think it was 18 months. We had a little short of 180 gigs or something like that. So yeah, it was, and we did that for so many years. We played so much, and you could really sort of feel that something, you know, that we maybe need to slow down a little bit. And also when we came off that Vredesvävd tour, we toured on the album for 2 years, quite a lot, and we tried to make some new music, and it didn't feel right. There was, you know, it was something missing. Finntroll always are looking for some kind of twist to the album, you know, a red thread that goes through the album, and we didn't find it. And the material, it was all over the place. It didn't sound. You could never fit those songs that we did back then on the same album. There was no chance. So we got offered to do 10-year anniversary of the Mathias album. So we did that for a little bit over a year, and you know, and we decided, like, after that we'll try to write something again and see what happens. And same problem, you know, people were pulling in so different directions that it didn't feel right. It didn't, you know, the material wasn't there. So we just, you know, did you know, a little bit off, like how's it, like off grid, well, off our normal path kind of gigs. You know, went to South Africa, Australia, South America, that for a while, Asia, and toured over there, and just decided that we'll write, you know, when it feels right, we will start writing. And all of a sudden, you know, the 6 years are like poof, gone like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it was actually last year that we sort of decided that we need to have an album out in 2020, because otherwise people are gonna start forgetting that we actually exist. Or, you know, when people start asking you for a comeback, that's, you know, when it's sort of, yeah. Yeah, then it tells you something that you should really start to, you know, do something so people actually know that you're alive. You know, we were never away. We played all the time. Like last year, we played at least 30 shows last year. We went to so many different countries. We had festivals the whole summer. But still, you know, we needed an album out. So I contacted Century Media, asked them for a deadline for a 2020 release. And when we got that date, I think it was like 8 months in the future until the master was supposed to be delivered, maybe 9 months, something like that. But then something clicked, and I think it was around the third song we did, that sort of red thread, we found it. You know, it's usually when you really start working, focusing on it, then you get the, this is how the album is going to sound. And then we went back to those old songs we had, rewrote them a bit, and here's the result.
Well, what would you say is the overall story behind this record, from a lyrical perspective? Well,
the lyrics on this album are, well, as usual on Finntroll, different songs are different stories. It happens on this album as well, but always the albums have sort of a concept. I wouldn't call it, a concept album.
A theme, maybe.
Yeah, it's a theme that we usually change. That happens in the music as well. We have a theme always on the album. Same happens with the artwork as well. The artwork also always has a theme. And but yeah, this one actually is sort of concentrated around different kind of journeys. And I'm not only talking about travel, it's of course there's like geographical journeys, but there's also spiritual journeys, and these journeys are sort of seen from the eyes of Katla, that the first singer that was on the first two albums, actually on Visar om slutet also a bit, but yeah, it's sort of his experiences that have been rewritten in a Finntroll kind of way, with his experimentation with nature and folklore and with shamanism and stuff like that. So it's basically of course there's also a little bit of fiction in there, and mixed up with all Finnish traditions and well, let's say Scandinavia or like Northern Europe traditions. So yeah. So
I felt that this record, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, from a fan's perspective, listening to the album, normally an album is made up of songs, so the songs make the record. I felt that this album made the songs. It was almost like an inverted pyramid. You don't have the songs building towards one full record. You have one full record that breaks itself into the different songs. Would you agree with that as far as the structure of the album is concerned?
Yeah, definitely. We were really with the structure of the album. This one was so much planned, and when we already had the setup for the album. We had the order of the songs already. Then we had written like 4 songs. I think we knew that this is going to be the first song, this is going to be the last song, this is going to be there, this is going to be there, and then we took it from the first song as a journey through the whole album, and here we need a fast one, so let's do something a little bit faster over here. Now we need to slow down, so let's do that song here, and everything. It was like the whole album was always there in the back of the head. It was like it was never never anything. So many bands do, they write a song about this, they write that, and they put it together, and then they sort of find kind of a common like theme for it, and that's the name of the album. But this is actually from the beginning. It's been it was sort of
the big picture.
Entity. Yeah. The big picture was there, and we were really sort of writing all the music, because it needed to fit between those 2 songs or something. It was always the big picture was the main goal here, and that's also with with the artwork for it, the lyrics, everything was sort of planned from to fit the whole entity.
It really comes across that way to me, at least. It really came across as an album that you guys had. That's why I said it's like the inverted pyramid. It's the album first, and then it breaks down into the songs. It feels that way. It doesn't feel like an album where you guys created these different songs and then try to like, okay, how can we interconnect them? It just really felt that you started with a big idea, and then the songs are like the trickle effects of that big idea. Okay, like this came here and this goes there. So it really comes across when you're listening to it.
Yeah, definitely. That was the point. At maybe after 3 or 4 songs, we already sort of knew the song structure we wanted to, even though we haven't made those songs yet. So yeah.
Another element that I thought was really interesting in the structure of the record is that it has, from the opening track, it has this very cinematic feel to it. The album feels very, very cinematic in the sound that it has. And then the way you guys interconnected the songs, it's really hard to find a spot in between tracks where you could slide a piece of paper. Like one song finishes and the other one starts like immediately. Like there's just this continuity between every single song that makes the album almost impossible for you to pause it and go do something else, because the moment the song finishes, the other one is already going. You know what I mean? Like, was that something you guys wanted to have, that fluid motion from the first track all the way to the last track?
Yeah, that was totally planned from almost the beginning to the end. We had the structure, as I talked to you about already. We didn't change it for the order of songs, for example. We didn't change it for the last 3 months of writing. It was the same. It was because everything that we did on this album was it was sort of to connect everything, and also that intro, the whole cinematic is sort of the glue also for it. So it introduces you to when you listen to it, you should listen also with the intro, because that makes you think in a certain direction, and it colors your sort of listening experience that is coming later.
Actually, when I was listening to the album, I felt that I loved the intro, but I was like, man, I almost wished you guys had made that part of the song, because if people are listening to the album on shuffle, or they're listening to the album on iTunes or whatever the case might be, and you miss that intro, you're missing the whole energy that the record is going to have and that every other song is going to have.
Yeah, and that's a one thing that is nowadays, when you have the world after Spotify and YouTube and stuff like that, because people, they don't listen to the whole albums anymore, and also you have to release singles. Before, we have been so against releasing singles from before, maybe like 1 or 2 songs tops if we have to. Usually it's been about just releasing the full product, and that's all. But this time, because it would totally ruin the promotion campaign if you wouldn't have anything out there, and people. So we had to sort of try to find 3 songs that sort of describes the whole album, so we can read. But without that intro, it's hard.
Very hard. And the funny thing about this is, obviously, I heard the singles before I heard the album. I really liked the singles, but when I heard the album and I heard the singles in the album, they almost sounded like different songs. And I think that a lot of that has to do with that fluidity, that intro plays such a huge role in how the whole album sounds afterward.
Yeah, the intro, it was that was the sort of idea with the whole intro, that that he introduces the elements of the album already, but in a different setting, and raises sort of the expectations, and then boom, it explodes. And that's also why, for example, that's one of my favorite tracks on the album is the opening track, Döda med en sten, but we didn't want to release that as single either, because that would spoil, the whole effect from the intro, how it goes over to that song. So we had to, so we couldn't release that one either. And there was so much, that because we designed it as, that you should actually listen to it the first time with the booklet, to read the lyrics, check the pictures, everything at the same time as you listen to it. But and it's the modern world now. But I really hope. I saw so many people out there that commented and said, I really want to watch this video, but I don't want to spoil it because I really want to listen to the whole album.
Mm-hmm. I can understand that. It's funny that it's also one of my favorite songs, because with the intro, when you put to me, you have to look at those two as one. You really can't break them apart, because they're really part 1 and part 2 of the same song, as far as I'm concerned. But that song has such a huge wall of sound. My goodness, it's like it's a snowball. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And in my opinion, is perhaps the best track to open up the record with, because it really has elements of everything else you're going to get down the line from the other songs. It kind of gives you a little bit of a synopsis. It's almost like a movie trailer.
Yeah, definitely, and that was sort of the idea of the whole thing, and but yeah, I'm really hoping. Well, I'm looking forward to when it's going to be released at 19th. You know, when the people actually have the time, and especially now people seem to have the time to sit down and listen to music, which is cool. So I'm really, really looking forward to see those reactions, how they're actually going to see when they have the big context, that see everything and actually can see the vision we had for the album.
As far as the sound goes for the record, I felt that you guys did a magnificent job layering the sound. And what I mean by that is I felt like every instrument on the record had a job to do. And you guys were very conscious of not letting one overlap the other. Like your job is to do this, so that's what you have to do. So let the other instrument do his job and don't try to be what you're not and kind of like leap over it.
Yeah, so exactly.
It almost felt like the record, as far as the sound was concerned, was almost like a lasagna. It had like different layers, and each layer was either a guitar or like a folk element or the drums or the vocals, but everything had its own path. Each of you guys were in your own path. Is that a good way of looking at the overall sound on this record?
Yeah. This is actually something that you are totally right about, because let's say, for example, the Vredesvävd album, on some tracks we ended up with, some songs we actually had like, there was lots of course, tracks with drums, there were bass, there were guitars. We had even all the guitars were dubbed, so they were like double. All the guitars were played 2 times and stuff like that. And on top of that, we had on some songs we had 120 tracks of keyboard, and then also a symphonic orchestra on top of it. So it was so massive and it was so overpowering, and there was so much, elements, small details over here and there that it's kind of like a, like the ADD album, it's a it's a but so already on the Vredesvävd album we took it down a little bit, so to say. There's shitloads of tracks and on that album as well, but it's a little bit more scaled down. But this one we actually wanted to even take it a little bit further down and actually just leave in the really stuff that you need there, that we cut away all those like small Danny Elfman-esque kind of tricks and treats that we had. For example, the Vredesvävd album is full of them, all the time, and that was so sort of what you were speaking about here before. So we actually had to, and every track of keyboard we put on there, it had sort of a function. There was it wasn't just because it sounded cool or something. No, it was because it was actually crucial for the track. So we tried to make it go a little bit back to the roots again, and a little bit also back to how black metal sounded in the end of the 90s. So just scaling it down and doing it with old synthesizers, the whole thing, and not layering big symphonic orchestras on it or anything like that.
It almost feels a little bit more raw, right? Like this way, it sounds a little bit more raw. And I think from when you transport the album from the studio to a live setting, it's going to work a lot better. It's going to be a much smoother transition. But for me, for the listener, it becomes a lot easier for me to process what's coming at me because it's almost like everything is coming on a different channel. So it's not like everything is just muffled in my brain when I'm listening to the album, and it's hard for me to break apart the guitars from the drums, from everything else that's happening, from the vocals. So I felt that you guys did a wonderful job guiding us, the listener, through the record, so we can get the most out of the sound that the album has to offer.
Yeah, definitely. This was, and also we were on the albums before, we have sort of made it ourselves. It's been me recording half of the album, Trollhorn recording 1/3, and then Tundras the rest of it, or something like that. It's usually been really hands-on process that we have done it ourselves, mixed it like 80% of the album ourselves and doing everything, but this time we decided to actually have the owner of the studio sort of more in a producer's role on this album, and actually he was there. He recorded all the drums. He recorded quite a lot of different things. He was also there every day when we mixed the album. He was there, and I also think that sort of when he was there, he had also this kind of outside vision for the album. That also, you know, when you're working yourself on an album, you get, you know, like you start.
Yeah, tunnel vision.
Yeah, exactly, and then it can be a bit, you know, like the Niflwind album that it has like lots of different stuff that you don't really know what to focus on, and this one actually is sort of, the sound is more clear, but still it's actually more powerful than on any other album before. But there's so many, you know, sides to why this album sounds like it does. But yeah,
it's definitely one, in my opinion. I think it's one of the best albums you guys have released. I know every band says that their latest album is the best album, but this one really feels like one of the more polished, well put together records. It just feels like you guys were a lot more focused on what you wanted out of it, and not just try to pack as much into it as you could possibly put on an album. From a vocal perspective, was there any new challenges or any difficulties that you had throughout this record?
Well, yeah, this time actually, well, I was so when I started, you know, doing the vocals for this album, I was still so deeply in my last album that I released before, the And Oceans album. So in the beginning of the recording sessions, I wasn't really happy with what I did, because it sounded like I was in the wrong band, you know.
You had the wrong hat on.
Yeah, exactly. You know, some singers that have, you know, they have a trademark sound or something like that. They just use it in all their bands, and you know, it becomes a selling point for the other band. But I don't like to do that. So I really want to have all my bands as different entities, and I do different sounds as well. Okay, Finntroll is a little bit different because I also sing in Swedish, so that also sets it a little bit apart. But still, I was so much into that And Oceans album also in the beginning. So having my brain rewired for Finntroll sessions took a little while. The other thing that was really difficult was actually the sheer speed of, you know, some of the parts that I sing on this album. You know, it's easy to get those parts when they're fast, when you have played them, you know, 50 gigs or practiced them for half a year before, you know, with the band. Then they're gonna, you know, roll like, you know, water from a tap, you know. But when it's, you know, the first times that you actually really sort of are there and working with them, it's and you don't 100% know the lyrics and everything, then it's a bit. It was tricky with the whole speed. For example, Vredesvävd, the second verse over there. Wow, that's that's. But I arranged it myself, so I can only blame myself for it. But
I was actually going to ask you about that song, because I felt that you guys have created. I mean, what I'm going to say sounds so stupid, but I'm going to say it anyways. You guys have created a Finntroll drinking anthem. Not like those didn't exist before, but I felt with that song specifically, it really has like an anthem vibe to it, from a musical perspective, but also from a vocal perspective.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a little bit like a Trollhammaren Part 2 kind of thing going on there. And that was also something in the beginning. We had to change lots of stuff in it because there was some parts that sounded too much. There was like the arrangements were too close to Trollhammar, so we actually sort of redid some stuff. And that was luckily to have a good drummer also that, you know, that did, you know, fills and stuff like that in a different way, so it didn't sound as much as, you know, as much as the Nutford album that it could have sounded, you know. And that's a good thing. But yeah, that song is that was terrible for me to record. I think that was the second last one I recorded. So yeah, but yeah.
It's when I was listening to it, I was wondering, how did you manage to do it? Like, I wonder if you guys just did one line cut, because I'm like, it was hard for my ears to even process it. Never mind for you to sing it. But the final result, you must be extremely happy with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I like to push myself with all my records, because it's boring to do, you know, the same old stuff and not evolve. So so this one was actually with that kind of, the articulation was, you know, I had really to push myself, and I really had to practice before as well to get them to sort of go fluently. And you know, I sometimes also, when I record, I forgot to breathe, so I started at some point, you know, putting small, you know, like marks in the lyrics where I need to breathe, so I don't forget to breathe it, because if I don't breathe there, the whole take is going to be ruined. So
wow, that's really interesting. I really hope that that's one of the songs that makes it to the live set, because like I said, it has such a party, drinking, anthem atmosphere to it that I could, when I was listening to it, I could almost picture myself with a beer, listening to you guys live, drinking, and just having like a good time. It's like it has that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, it definitely has. And you know, this is going to be a terrible album to choose from, you know, because this is the album that you want to play the whole album. Some of, you know, the albums before, we have had these songs that are like untranslatable into a live session, because they would work, you know, in a like a musical or something, like more than in a, you know, in a rock concert. So but this album has potential to, you know, like every song on the album will work live. So it's definitely going to be hard to choose what to do. We are sort of practicing right now. We are sort of practicing. Well, the idea is to practice all songs, so we actually have them. So yeah, so we can sort of check out which ones work and which ones not. But we actually have the chance to go and play live.
My last question for you is, I've been seeing how excited you are about all the press that you've been doing for the release of the album, all the interviews and all the pictures, all the covers on the magazines. You've been on high demand, but I'm sure for as much fun as that has been, or perhaps not, but it looks like it's been a lot of fun. You probably are itching to play this album and play some of these songs live. So
yeah,
the question is, are you guys thinking of doing like a live stream or something along those lines?
Yeah, definitely. The thing is, right now we got some new restrictions actually this week from the Finnish government, and going outside of Finland right now, that's totally out of the question. You know, there's not a chance, you know, that we can go outside and play. And also, if we go somewhere outside of Finland with an airplane, then you have a 2-week quarantine when you get home, and that's gonna be terrible for some of the parents in this band, and you know, that have jobs and stuff like that, so that is not doable. So we were actually planning some shows here in Finland, and sadly we had a good release show planned and everything, and with the new restrictions we cannot do it. So let's see what happens. We are trying to reschedule, but there's absolutely something in the lines of a concert where you can actually sell tickets as well as virtual tickets, you know. So
that would be amazing. So you could actually get some audience, even if it's limited audience, into the show.
Exactly. Finland right now, you know, the venues they can sort of take up to half capacity. So because there needs still to be, you know, the distance, like between 1 and 2 meters between all, you know, persons that you fit in there. What they do, you know, when they get in there, if they pack into the front, you know, that you cannot do anything about that. But you know, it still has to have, you know, that kind of like safe zones.
Yeah, I understand.
Able to that, you know. So if we would play, you know, in a small venue that takes like 400 people, you know, it's 400 people is, you know, then it's people out to the door, you know. So that means that, you know, with these rules, you have to cut the ticket sales in sort of half. And so, yeah, we are actually waiting for some new puzzles, because we sort of had to push that gig a little bit forward. But I really hope that we can soon announce actually some news and something, you know, that's going to happen before that European tour starts. We have lots of plans. We have lots of plans, but everything is like half a year late.
Well, and everything now, it's almost like you never know. Like things change. It seems like things change on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. It's really hard to keep track. Me personally, I'm just hoping that things get better for 2021 because I know you guys are scheduled to go back to Summer Breeze because this year it couldn't happen. And I'm planning on being there as well. So I'm hoping to hear some of these new tracks from this new album live there with a beer and not have to worry about social distancing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward. And I was so let down about that Summer Breeze because Summer Breeze is one of my favorite festivals. Easily top 5 festivals I've ever been to. I've been there probably the most that I've been to any festival. I think I had like 5 gigs at least at 5 festivals. And Summer Breeze really like the place, and I really like the small village outside as well where you all live. And I was really unhappy when we had to cancel that one.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I was really looking forward to it. But hey, there's 2021, and until then, people can do what I did, which was when I got the album, I listened to it like 12 times straight in the same day. I just couldn't put it down. So at least people have new music to listen to during these times when you're stuck at home and you can't go anywhere. And you said it before, and I have to say this again. Please listen to the album from start to finish. This album has to be heard from start to finish in order for you to really get what this album is about and how good this album is.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's sort of, you know, like a 39-minute long song, this whole thing. You know, it's
it kind of feels that way. That way. Well, Mathias, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with the album release and with that virtual live show. I'm going to call it virtual live show.
Yeah, exactly.
If it happens, I will be looking forward to seeing it online. And like I said, all the best with the release and stay safe and stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you. And same goes out to you over there.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you so much.